You're listening to Platform Six Cantina, a Star Wars The Old Republic podcast. We're glad you could join us.
Welcome to the Platform Six Cantina Podcast. I am Bodie.
And I am Mara. And this is Proclamation 1, SWTOR Update 7.3, Prognostications.
Prognostications, huh?
What does that mean? Bodie, do you want to explain
Yes,
our title for
I
this
would love to. So we can barely think straight at this point. We are so excited for the 7.3 SWTOR update. And what we're doing in this episode essentially is presenting some of our predictions, expectations, hopes. That's exactly where we want to take this. We're literally over the moon.
We are so excited. And we know that many other story fans are also really excited. We had a live stream announcing update 7.3 on the 3rd of May, I believe, just about 3 weeks ago now. And we saw some very interesting snippets from the upcoming story. Yeah. Including a certain somebody's back.
Could it be Arcann?
It could be. I couldn't quite tell. But
yeah, let's be real. It was Arcann. Yeah. And how excited are we that the devs made it a huge point that he's back?
We are so excited. And we're so excited to know that the upcoming story is going to take place on Voss. So this update is called Old Wounds, which is a title that we're going to delve into in this proclamation, and talk about what does that mean? Whose wounds and what might that mean for our characters going forward? But before we get into all of that, we did want to do just a quick recap of the story updates involving Arcann, especially up until this point, because we're obviously going to talk a lot about Arcann's return in this upcoming story update. So we just want to quickly go over where has he been? What is going on with him? This isn't something that we normally do on our podcast. We don't normally do story summaries, but just for this particular proclamation, we feel that it makes sense to just go over that one more time as it pertains to our speculations on what is going to happen going forwards.
Exactly. And so how far back do you think we should start, Mar?
I think we should start with the update called Whispers in the Force. That was update 732. And I don't know if you remember the date when that was released. Yes, it was. That was still 7.3.
No way. Okay, keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So I want to hear your guess now, Bodie. When would you guess that came out? Because I know that you haven't looked it up. I have but
not.
You haven't.
I've been trying not to look at it because I think it's been a while.
How long do you think it's been?
Has it been a year?
It's been more than a year.
No.
It's been more
How
than a
long?
year.
Tell me.
Whispers in the Force came out on August 31st, 2021.
No.
I had to double check that a bunch of times because I read that on some very reliable sources, including Volk, and I thought, can that be right?
Wait, so just for reference point, it is currently May 27th, 2023 that we're recording this.
Yes, it is. So that is a really long time ago.
Wait. That's when we sent him, correct?
That's when we sent him. That's when we had a meeting on Odessen with the Alliance leaders, and we were told that Task Force Nova sent us some information about Darth Nul's relic. And Sana Ray suggested that we send Arcann on his mission to go to this dark planet and see what he could find out about the source of one of Darth Nul's relics. And that's also when he sent us a letter titled, "I'll be home soon."
Oh, yeah. That's such a great letter.
I know, but I have to say that title, looking back, considering that was in 21, it certainly took a while, and I think it took a longer time than anybody expected, including Arcann, I guess.
So is that actually supposed to be real time? Like our passing
that's
time?
That's the question. Because the next time we heard from Arcann was, of course, in Game Update 7.1, Digging Deeper, which came out on August the 2nd, 2022. So that's also a while ago now. And that's when he contacted us with his update to say that he felt like he had failed on his mission because he had found these ruins, but he was unable to penetrate deeper into the ruins and learn more about the source of Darth-Not's relic because of an overwhelming energy force keeping him out of there. So if we assume that game time follows real time, that obviously means that he would have been in this place for a year, which to me does not
before
make
the first holo call.
Yes.
Oh my God. There's no way that that's okay.
There's no way.
There's no way that that's right, because I mean, at that point too, if you look back, like I knew it was going to be like 2.5 years that you've been out there. I wouldn't have sent you in the first place. I would have kept you here. That's crazy. Not
to mention the fact that in the letter that I referenced before, the one titled "I'll be home soon," that he sent after update 7.32 Whispers in the Force, he says, Sana Ray told me to set out on my mission immediately, so I will already have left by the time you get this letter.
Oh, man.
How strange does that seem, that he set out without even saying goodbye to us, and he was gone for over a year? There's no way that can be right, for a number of reasons. Also, just the fact
that's
that
crazy.
It is also just the fact that if we assume that Arcann had been on this planet and he's alone, apparently we did not send him with a team. We sent him by himself, which first of all would be a terrible decision by the commander, I think.
Yeah.
Why would you send one person, no matter
even
how
if it
strong?
is Arcann? I mean,
even if it is Arcann, you would send a team if you wanted them, if you expected them to be gone for over a year.
This is crazy.
If we assume that maybe the commander also thought this is just going to be a brief mission, he's going to go there, look into the source of this relic, and come back within a couple of weeks or maybe months. It still seems weird if we assume that nobody expected it took this long, but it actually did.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit right with me, because I can't help but to think that all the things Arcann has worked towards so far, the relationships that he's built up in the alliance, would begin to decay and kind of fall apart if he's been gone for this long. It just doesn't feel right to isolate somebody who finally found some connection with his mother, the commander, etc.
And don't forget the fact that, I mean, we'll talk about this in other proclamations, but at the same time, like, you can make an argument that Arcann has been isolated and alone, even when he was emperor of the Eternal Empire. During that whole time, it's you can make that argument as well. So now he's alone, literally again. It's interesting,
but in a slightly different way, I suppose, because when I absolutely agree with you, by the way. I think he was absolutely isolated as emperor, even though he was surrounded by people. I think he felt extremely alone at the time. But now he's on a mission for the Alliance, and he also expresses that in his letters, the romance one and the friendship letter. He expresses that this is his duty. He would do anything to keep what we've built together safe. He also actually mentions that in some of his other letters, the ones that we had forever ago, even before the romance alert. He says that he feels a deep connection to the Alliance. So yes, he's alone on this dark planet that he's been sent to, but it is for a shared
purpose.
A goal. Purpose that he shares with a community. He has a goal that's not just his goal, but is something that he's doing for the benefit of the community that he is now a part of, right?
Exactly.
But still, I would still say
forever. I had no idea.
It has been forever, and
I hadn't been tracking it. Honestly, I had not been tracking it, kind of on purpose, because I thought it was going to be a long time, and it was just a little bit disappointing.
It is a little bit disappointing because we've been waiting for so long. It has felt to me like we waited for a really long time, but I was also really, really surprised when I looked up the dates and saw just how much time has passed. So to cut a long story short, I think we have to assume that game time and real time do not cohere anymore the way that they used to. Charles Boyd said forever ago on the forums that he tried to make the game updates match real time, so you could assume that if a month had passed in real life, it had been about a month in game time. that there's no way that can be the case anymore, I think. But we'll have to wait and see, of course, what the devs say.
Yes.
Maybe we'll be surprised. Maybe it'll turn out that he actually has been gone for a really long time, and maybe that'll tie into the story somehow. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? So as it stands now, there's this huge gap, immense gap, from sending him to getting the holocall to whatever's going to happen in 7-3, right? There's these huge gaps.
Yeah.
And I do have to say this because it's a prime time to mention this fact. So we are immensely interested in these characters and their adventures, their ups, their downs, and things like that. And as fans, Mara and I have discussed over time, what could these characters, in this case specifically Arcann, what could he possibly have done, or what's going on? What is he up to when he's on these planets? And I have to mention it, have to bring it up. So we had some thoughts and things like that as to what could possibly have gone down, what is going down, what kind of things Arcann had been experiencing or is currently experiencing. And we're filling in those gaps.
We are. We've had a great many thoughts and conversations about it. And we are, should we do a reveal, Bodie? We actually haven't planned this.
Well, I think we should. I think this is the prime time to do it. This is filling in the gaps. This is a big deal. I mean, I think we should.
So we are doing a collaborative writing project right now. We are writing fan fiction about what Arcann is doing on this planet. And this is, to me, this is what is so interesting about fandom. It's filling out those gaps, the things that we might not learn in canon, but that we can speculate about, and we can try and fill out those gaps based on what we do know and what we think makes sense for that character. So that's what we're doing. We're writing a pretty long story about the build up to his journey and his time on this planet, and what we think he might actually have learned about himself, how he might actually have developed as a character on this journey as a result of being isolated. And perhaps also as a result of being faced with some things that might bring back some of his old feelings. We know that it's a dark planet. That's one of the only things actually we learn about this place. I have a quote by Sana Ray here. She says, and this was in Whispers in the Force, she said, "There are not many who know this planet. It is in a dark region of wild space, a dangerous, untamed world." So we can read things into that, but to me, it definitely sounds like this is a planet that is more aligned to the dark side of the Force. And it's interesting to me that we would choose to send Arcann there, especially considering back when he first joined the Alliance, he was very reluctant to go to Nathema, because that place, it's not the same, because Nathema was a place that was dead in the Force, but still it was a really dark world that he knew would have a very unfortunate effect on him. He actually said, "I will fall back into my own old ways if I go there."
Yeah, that's right.
But we have to assume that by now Arcann has come so far in his redemption arc that it's safe to send him alone for a very long time, maybe, to a very dark planet.
And what a testament to his growth as a character too, from our character's perspective as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I do have to say this too, that I don't just say this to say this, but Mara is literally one of the best writers that I've ever encountered. And I'm not even exaggerating. The work that she's putting into this, she knows this character in and out. It just does absolute justice to the character of Arcann and his journey, what he might actually be experiencing and going through mentally, some of his thoughts while he's alone on this unknown planet. It's phenomenal, and we can't wait to share it with everybody, to maybe fill in some of the gaps, in our personal headcanons. Obviously it's not canon, but I think it's going to do character absolute justice, and just beyond thrilled. It's phenomenal work.
Thank you so much, Bodie.
Thank
So
you.
this is actually my first time doing collaborative writing with anybody, but we're having such a good time doing it. So the way it works for us is I write the story, but Bodie is my editor. She is my beta reader, and she is very much, the idea woman, if you can call it that, behind this story. And we've had some great brainstorms, and you contributed so much to this story with some really good ideas that I'm just trying to put into words and flesh out.
So we are doing our
exciting
part. I know, right? And we're doing our part to try to fill in these gaps, because unless we'll talk about what's coming up in 7.3 and momentarily, but if it just stays as is right now, what the things that we're going to be talking about are just going to fill in all these missing pieces, we feel, from what's been excluded from his journey.
Yeah.
But with that being said, do we have anything else to talk about for the planet?
Well, I did want to mention that there's been some fan speculation about where exactly he is, because of course the planet has not been named in the game. The devs have not told us exactly where he's gone. All we know is the quote that I read aloud before. So, and then we know that it might be near Soule, because Arcann mentions in his letter, he says he's tempted to make a detour to Soule, and it feels strange to be, and I'm quoting his letter here, so close to a place so near his homeworld. So we know that it's pretty near to Soule. So what some fans have done is they've looked at some fan-made maps of the galaxy, and they've tried to identify where he might actually have gone. I'm not sure that this is a place that actually appears on any official maps. I feel like if it were, maybe the devs would have already told us where he's gone. Or if it is an established world, there has to be a reason why they haven't told us. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe there's going to be a reveal in story update 7.3.
I mean, I would hope so.
I would really hope so.
You've been gone for 2.5 years. Where were you? And everyone's like, we don't know. We don't know where he was. He doesn't know where he was.
So maybe this is an uninhabited, unnamed world. Maybe that's the case. But it feels like by now, because like you said, it's been such a long time, it feels like we should have either been told this place doesn't have a name, or there's a reason why they're keeping the name from us, because maybe they want to reveal where it is later on. And I hope that it's the latter, because I feel like there's been build up and anticipation. I've seen so many people ask on various forums on Twitter, where exactly is he?
We've been asking too, right? Didn't we talk to Charles Boyd about it? He actually responded too.
Yeah, we did. I actually went back and double checked. I tweeted Boyd on February the 16th in 2022, because there was fan speculation back then that maybe Arcann had gone to Elam. That was before
we thought that too.
We did. We talked about it, and I remember we looked at maps, and I remember we talked about how it doesn't seem like that could be the place, because Elam is an established world already, and it's nowhere near wild space actually on a map. But at the same time, the way things were phrased in the conversations, it kind of sounded like that was where he'd gone, because at the time Elam was the only place we'd heard about in connection with Darth Nul's relics. But Boyd did reply to my tweet and confirmed that he had not gone to Elam. But that's the only dev response we really had, as far as I'm aware.
Wow.
As to his whereabouts.
Okay, well.
So what I've seen some fans speculate is that maybe he could have gone to a place called Sonoma Sakot. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But I did look up some stuff about it. I have not come across that world myself in the Star Wars novels that I've read, but from what I understand, it is a planet that exists in legends in some of the novels.
Interesting.
Actually, some of the novels with Luke and Mara Jade, which is not canon, of course. And this place is a living, sentient world that sort of travels through space. It sounds really weird, which is one of the only other things we know about the dark planet that Arcann went to. He says that it is even stranger than Sana Ray could have prepared him for. And we've talked before about how it's got to be pretty strange for Arcann to describe something as weird.
Yes.
We feel like it has to be pretty out there.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point.
So maybe it could be this planet called Sonoma Secot. If you look at maps, it is close to Soule. At the same time, like I said, it obviously is a world that actually moves through space, however that works.
I don't know. Well, it's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah. I looked up the other planets that I was able to see on various maps, and none of them sound to me like they're likely to be the one. So my guess is that either it's an unnamed world or it's a new world that will be revealed to us.
Okay, well, it's another reason to get super excited for 7.3. Hopefully it's gonna be it's gonna reveal this information. Should we move on to analysis of the title of the expansion, the story expansion, which is Old Wounds?
This is very interesting because whose wounds might that refer to, and what wounds?
I have some ideas. Should I start?
Please do.
Okay, so what I've been thinking about is the main thing would be the wounds, like the physical wounds on Voss from the destruction of the planet, but by Valen using the Eternal Fleet in her pursuit of Arcann and Senya, the beginning of KOTET. So that's just on the basic level, right? So old wounds, they're basically the inferences that they're healing, right?
Yeah.
And the picture that we do have of Arcann is him sitting in a room. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Sitting in a room on Voss, next to our character. You can tell it's on Voss. So
yeah,
old wounds. We're talking about maybe healing old wounds. Those are like actual physical wounds, damage inflicted upon the planet itself. But then there's also, you can't deny this. This is Arcann's return in the story, and it's called Old Wounds. So that's talking about, it could be talking about psychological wounds.
Absolutely.
I have some things to tell you about that, but I want to see what your take is on that first.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that it mainly does refer to, like you said, the physical wounds on the planet from Valen's bombardment. But I would also strongly expect and hope that it refers to the psychological wounds left on the characters and on the people of Voss, of course. And it's interesting because Voss is such a significant place to Arcann, because obviously this was where he was healed in the Shrine of Healing. This was where he was reborn. And we've talked about that before, and we agree that it's fair to use the word rebirth for what happened to Arcann on Voss. It's not, we strongly feel that he was not magically fixed by Voss healing. We've seen that
Absolutely
take sometimes. That is not at all the case, but it is the case for a character like him who carried so much trauma that I think it was necessary to just get to a point where he could begin to do the work himself, to get to a place where he could become a new person and repair all his damage and heal his own wounds. But you have to have a certain starting point to work from. You can't be deep in your trauma and do that work on yourself. So I feel like that's what the healing ritual did for him. It just got him to a starting point where it was possible for him to move forwards.
Right. Exactly. I completely concur. And we have so much to say on this topic, and Arcann's basic essence, I guess you could say. That's a whole nother discussion, which we will cover. But staying on the topic of 7.3 type stuff, I completely concur with what you just said. I wanted to read you something really quickly that I found from a psychology journal.
Interesting.
See what you think. Okay, so she hasn't heard this, but I think it's very, very telling, especially as it pertains to the title of Old Wounds, right? The title is Healing the Past in the Present. We can't change the past, but we can repair it. Many of us have events from our past that left us wounded. Childhood neglect, rejection, death of a close family member. This rings some bells here for Arcann. Wow. Trauma, such as emotional abuse, among other things. And when these events and traumas occur, three things happen. Our world view shifts. It's no longer safe for us, and bad things can happen unexpectedly. We adjust our coping style unconsciously or semi-consciously, deciding now how we need to act to avoid having these traumatic events from happening or affecting us again. We are left with the emotional wound itself, like a physical wound. It's always in our awareness. We are protective of it and sensitive to anything that may re-injure it. But this same sensitivity also makes us even more vulnerable to what we're afraid of.
That is very interesting, and I think it really describes Arcann's situation very well.
I know,
noticed
right?
that one of the very first lines in that quote, it was almost an echo of something that Arcann actually says. I believe that he does say, "I can't change the past, but I can atone for it."
Atone for it. Yep.
So the past is always with you. It always lives with you. It's not something that is just forgotten about or silenced. It's always there with you in the present for somebody who carries that kind of trauma. And that's also interesting with regard to this title, Old Wounds, because the update could have been called Old Scars, which would have indicated something has
completely healed.
Yep. It's still there, but it has healed, but it's not. It's wounds. So there's still something there that hasn't been healed. There's something that's unfinished.
Exactly. And the journal even goes on to have to provide recommendations to heal the past by breaking the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It says the way that you react to present situations and occurrences can set off a chain of actions and reactions that fuel a downward spiral that can eventually create a self-fulfilling prophecy. How
Those are also
that?
words that definitely tie in with Arkann's story and the themes that are so important in his story arc. A self-fulfilling prophecy.
It says, finally, right here, it says, by consciously changing what we do in the present, we create a new lens through which to view our past.
Mm-hmm. And that's so interesting because that's something that we actually see him doing, and we've seen him do that in the recent updates. I think actually starting with the Echoes of Oblivion story update, where before we set out to face the remnant of Tenebrae Visio de Valkorion, in Satir's mind, Arcann speaks to us if you are in a romance with him.
Yes.
And it's a very vulnerable moment for him where he says, I can feel all these old things flooding back. I can feel myself being pulled back into the same cycle. I was thinking about that as you read the quote from the journal aloud, Bodie. That feeling of always repeating an old pattern and never quite being done doing the work to break free of that. I think that's something that describes his character really well.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that for Arcann, this is a lifelong project. This is probably something that even though he's definitely moving forwards, I feel like it will never go away. There's always going to be something that pulls in the other direction. There's always going to be something that tears open the wound again.
Yeah. That has to be what the title's also. It has a double meaning. It's talking about physical wounds, to the planet of Voss, and the fact that Arkann's prominently featured and was touted openly by the devs as returning. It's so excited. And imagine how it's got to play into his story as well.
It's got to, because imagine how he would feel returning to Voss and seeing the physical wounds left on the planet, knowing that this is a people that meant so much to him, that this is the place where he had the chance to start anew and change the person that he wants to be and go in a different direction. He has to carry so much guilt, even though it wasn't him. Obviously it was Valen that bombarded Voss, so he's not directly responsible, but indirectly he is,
because he just because he was there.
Because he
Senya,
was there.
Just because actually it was, Senya brought him there.
Yeah, so it is because of him that the place was bombed, and because of his legacy and everything that his family carries with it. So he must feel like there's a debt that's owed to, right? A debt to help heal his wounds on the planet.
And just like everything else in the story, which is what we love about it, there's a duality to it. This is a place that brings maybe feelings of guilt, brings those feelings out in Arcann, but also this is a place of rebirth and hope for him as well. His emotions probably run the full gamut. It's everything across the board for him.
Yeah. And the Shrine of Healing on Voss is not just a place symbolizing hope and rebirth for Arcann, but for everybody in the galaxy, right? I mean, this is a place that people used to go to. People used to make pilgrimages to this shrine, hoping to be healed of something, whether that was a physical wound or an emotional wound. And it got completely destroyed. We see it as a ruin in chapter 1 of KOTET. So there's something here that also needs to be fixed or healed, not just on a personal scale, but on a much bigger scale than that too. Something that benefits everybody and not just this one character.
I love it. It's so true. I love the title. I'm just super excited for 7-3. Should we do a dive into the actual release picture, the teaser picture?
Yes, let's talk about it.
So, for those listening on Spotify, we actually can link the picture on our YouTube channel if you want to go check it out there as well. But what we're looking at here is the one screenshot that the developers of SWTOR leaked as part of the live stream, and it's a shot from behind of Arcann in a room. You can clearly see out the doorway behind him. It's on Voss, and our player character sitting to his side. But what do you want to say about this picture, Mara?
We have a bunch of things to say about this picture. We've talked about it a lot. First of all, I think the body language is really interesting when you look at these pictures, because they're sitting down, and that's what I'm so excited about, because it took me a minute to realize that, because when we first saw the picture in the live stream, you had the bar with the developers' names covering the very bottom of the picture, so you couldn't really see if they were standing or perhaps walking towards the doorway or sitting down. But looking at it full screen, I think it's pretty clear that they are actually sitting. You can sort of see Arcann's robes flaring out a little bit, and it looks a little bit the way the player character is sitting. It looks a bit like maybe he has his hand on his knee, resting on his knee. So it looks like they're sitting down having a conversation. And the reason why this is so interesting is because it makes me very hopeful that they're having a more intimate, deeper conversation, hopefully about what Arcann discovered on his mission to the Dark Planet, or about what's going on Voss.
Yeah, I mean that's the difference between standing for something, right? That's a more formal, official seeming. I think sitting down, especially next to somebody.
There's something
which you brought up too.
Yeah, there's something about the body language that also indicates intimacy to me, and I don't mean that. Friendship. I don't mean that in a romance sense, but also just intimacy between friends. They're sitting side by side as opposed to across from each other.
Yep.
Which makes it look to me like Arcann is talking to the commander here as a friend and not as a commander or a superior or a leader.
Great point. Yeah, absolutely.
Also, the
way
fact
more personal.
It's way more personal, and the fact that the commander is on his left side, so the player character would be facing his scars, also something that just to me heightens the intimacy of the composition of this picture, that he is looking at the wounded side of Arcann's face that he kept hidden beneath the mask for such a long time.
Oh, that's such a great take. That's such a great take.
It's a great picture. Everything about it is just making me feel really excited for 7-3. The way that Arcann is also very central in this composition. He's kind of framed by the doorway.
He is, yep.
Obviously makes us hope that he will also feature centrally in the story update.
Exactly. We are running low on time, but we do want to reiterate one more time just how very excited this expansion or story update, however you want to phrase it, has made us. This has been invigorating, I guess you could say. Correct?
It has. Yeah, it's inspired us to begin a bunch of fan projects. We mentioned the fan fiction. Also, it's inspired for both of us, I think, other content like the videos, the amazing video content that Bodie is putting out. that I encourage everybody to go and watch if you haven't done it already. It hits really hard, and I think right now is actually the perfect time to watch the lamentation video that you made, because it really just shows Arcann's journey and the trauma that we talked about, the emotional wounds that he must still be carrying. I think those wounds are made explicitly clear in a way that hits really hard in that video. And I think it's a good thing to keep in mind, especially for somebody who might not have played KOTFE KOTET for a while and who might have kind of forgotten exactly what it was Arcann went through. It feels like this is the right time to just revisit that before this story update, because of the title and because of our hope that this ties in with healing old emotional, psychological wounds.
Old wounds. There you go. We do have way more to say on this topic.
We do.
So much so that we are actually putting out a part 2. So go ahead and stick around for the next part. We're going to be talking about Arcann's character art. What we hope is going to come in 7.3 for him and beyond. And even what else we're expecting, even to include, hopefully, some more romance scenes for him. What a great romance he's got.
We have a lot to say about that. And we also want to talk a bit more about Senya. We haven't seen any indication that Senya is going to be featured in Update 7.3. We hope so, of course, because we always want more Senya content.
Yes, definitely.
But we also have some hopes for what might be in line for Senya down the road. So we're going to talk more about that in part 2.
Yeah. So go ahead and stick around. Join us for part 2. And thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, and we will meet again.
This concludes another episode of Platform Six Cantina, a Star Wars The Old Republic podcast.